lot of things, just like we did back in 2000, about the end. But the interesting thing about the Mayans is that they were sure smart cookies. But everybody kind of come down here. This is our half moon gallery, and wonderful things always happen in this one. And here we're looking at the notion of time, as you'll see with Deepak Chowdhury's work, with the notion of what's permanent and impermanent. Ouroboros, the alchemical symbol that gets used in many cultures of either a dragon eating its tail or a snake eating its tail. It's the end as new beginning, that there really is no destruction, that there is just another experience. So what you have to know about the Maya, and we have a 6th century AD chocolate pot from them that is being framed in a security case for up here. But those wonderful Mayans gave us chocolate, and their chocolate was probably made into sort of a frothy alcohol. But they also, now this is way pre-computers. Not only did they give us the most accurate calendar system that remained, where it predicted every eclipse and everything going forward for its entire existence. There is, have any of you ever gone down to Chichen Itza in Mexico? Yes. Yeah? Have you been there for the equinox? No? No? Okay, the equinox, actually Teresa and our staff was there. Twice a year, the fall and the spring equinox, the body of Chichen Itza, the pyramid, has these big snake heads at the bottom. And what happens is the light at the very time of the equinox comes down, fall and spring, and begins to descend like a diamondback, this is a photograph of it, onto the walls of the pyramid, making this diamond pattern, and then reaches and meets up with the stone head. Now think of all the buildings with all the trained architects that we now have. Can you think of anything that would act as a giant solar interactive sculpture? That's the smart cookies. So the Huichol Indians have carried on. There are many, many Mayan peoples all around the world. One of the top Mayan scholars is also an astronomer expert too, is John Carlson, lives and works at University of Maryland. But there are two others that are involved in are looking at this notion of what does it mean that one of the large cycles of the Mayan calendar is coming to an end on the winter solstice of 2012. And and it has practical ramifications. Why diet? I mean, so now I would like you all, if you could, to we'll hand out the 3D glasses. Do you have them? Does everybody have 3D glasses? If not, we have a whole bunch here. Oh my goodness. Oh, good. Oh, here, have that one. And begin with looking at the picture again. This is a contemporary that talks about the 4 worlds and the 5th that is about to end in the Mayan and Huichol tradition. And they believe that the first people were actually intelligent and speaking deer. That they were the first, and it was during a very golden time on the earth. That there weren't humans yet. And he talks about the 4 worlds and what is to come. These are the 5th world sun, Huichol. These are older than this. This is very new. Just this past year, Macario did this for us. But they are really thinking in these villages, when they're seeing this devastation of their ancestral homes, of what's really happening in the world. As you may know if you get online about the Hopi prophecies, almost all of the Hopi prophecies that go way, way, way back have come about towards the purification day. So it's an interesting thing. Can you see what happens when you wear your glasses? How these jump out? And these are the peyote buttons that they don't do recreational drugs. They do it for divine inspiration. And then, speaking of inspiration, where is Wendy Brackman?
She's over here.
Okay.
She's over here.
Wendy, I'd like to introduce you. This is Wendy Brackman, who is quite an artist, and her form of artistry has taken the common paper plate to celestial levels.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. I'm so delighted to be here today. I've been sculpting my whole life, and paper is one of the aspects of how I think 3D. This mandala is the 4th mandala that I've built, but I haven't built a mandala for a while. I think it was 18 years ago that I built the last one, and when I got into paper sculpture, they were for the purpose of building the mandalas as a work in progress for a variety of different museums. So I knew I had 3 hours, I knew I had a day, I knew I had a weekend to build this, or a week, in front of the public, to watch, to explore how an artist is thinking about using materials and building a work of art. Anyway, so since that time, I've been stewing, I've been cooking up this idea, and Rebecca was my catalyst for that, for this wonderful show, All Things Round. It turns out that I've been working with round for 30 years. This will be 2012 is the 30th year that I've been working primarily with circles. I got involved by accident. I was sitting many years ago at a boring barbecue, and I saw a stack of cheap paper plates there, and I said, "What's this great materials? You know, it's 100 paper plates for $1. 100 ideas." So I picked up a scissor and I folded it, and I created a silhouette cutout, a symmetrical silhouette in the center, having cut away just the end. When I opened it, it was my idea to show that it was framed by a paper plate. It was cut from a paper plate. I looked at it, and I stuck it on my head, and the cutout stood straight up, and I went, "Eureka, it's a hat." So I explored this whole idea of bringing everything out of a circle, exploring how every way that the circumference of a circle could work, whether paper, if it was surrounding your head, could come out from the sides, from the front down as a mask, and on and on and on. I built entire costumes with paper plates. At the time, I could only get white paper plates, and I thought that the backside of the paper plate was the ultimate shape, you know? So what did I do? I was like in Alice in Wonderland, the Queen painting the roses red. I took my paper plates, I smashed, I painted hundreds of colors onto the plates, hung them to dry, and started building these outrageous costumes. These costumes, unbeknownst to me, looked a lot like Erte's fantastic creations. Meanwhile, I didn't know about Erte all that much, but I got to take these costumes and put them on performers at his 90th birthday. He had a party at the plaza, and these costume women were walking around, looked just like his drawings. It's amazing. So we kind of launched. Say again?
What year was that?
Oh my goodness. I think that was probably 1984.
They were going around in circles.
You might say. And what happened was, after cutting, getting into this silhouette cutting, I thought I should write some books, and a friend said, "You would be great at a party." Oh yeah, right. So I started, she booked me for a party, just like that. I went to a party and figured, oh, I have to wear a fabulous hat, I have to wear a fabulous costume. I am the scissor wizard, I guess. And my career was begun. And I've been all over the world performing, I work much like a close-up magician works, creating instant works of art for people to wear and take home souvenirs, and all based on their personality. I read people. Since I'm working with them and I'm kind of focusing on them through comedy, I'm able to loosen people up, and I just get an intuitive feel for what would delight them. And I've been in parties where it's been just unbelievable, where people start walking around, becoming the works of art themselves, or becoming the character that I make for them.
For the docents who are here,
Yes.
you want to talk about what you did?
Yes. Oh, yeah, sure. In going back and creating this, I got to revisit my, I guess my stash of paper plates. I have been piling up paper plates for 30 years, much like the toothpick story of finding the best toothpick and which brand and all of that. Oh my goodness, I have been to every manufacturer to get the best paper plates wholesale. And I figured out that I should use the dish part, not the back side, because that takes a whole lot of whatever. So I've been collecting just about everything in this mandala has been from my collection. Only a few have been painted, and the painted ones are really fabulous because they look like I've added beads and illuminated and accentuated the plates. What else? I usually start in the center. This is much like the galaxy, and the forms come. I see this particular piece as being very static. The last ones that I've built, my husband has built armatures, and they spun. So they were a moving kaleidoscope of color. So based on that, I have a lot of things that you can kind of discover when you look at it. It's fabulous from far away, it vibrates, but even up close, it's got a lot of juicy color, and there's some hidden things. So it's fun, you know, if the children are looking at it, they can discover special little things. Of course, the snakes biting their tails. The checkerboard plates are very bold. I use them sparingly, but when I made this snake, and this was hand painted, again, this is the front, the underside of the plate. I made the diamond backs from the checkerboard. So that's kind of cute. I mean, if you were to ask the little ones, maybe where did it come from, came from another paper plate.
What's the title?
Well, it's called, I don't know what to call it. It's obviously a paper plate mandala, but I like to call it Wendela's mandala because that's the most affectionate thing you can ever call me is Wendela. It's a family kind of thing. Say again?
How do you spell Wendell?
Any way you want. But if it looks like mandala, it would be W-E-N-D-A-L-A. But the family does the W-E-N-D-E-L-L-A. It's longer.
And you were also, you started to support yourself cutting people's hair in a studio, right, to make some money?
Oh yeah, I really am, the scissor is I am Wendy Scissorhands. That's what it's really all about. My life is a series of near misses. That was a movie about me, and people would come to me, and I had started cutting hair in the 80s. All those crazy layered haircuts, and I got all of my references. I had over 80 clients in a small period of time because they go, "Where did you get your haircut?" And it grew, and it was great fun.
And you were unlicensed, so you were a self-taught haircutter too?
Intuitive haircutter.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I will tell you my vision, because after having created this, when Rebecca invited me to be in the show, I started on building the turtles with a fade of color, and I was really having fun layering them because they came to life. And she emailed me, "Look up the Weechel Indians." It was like she was cosmically communicating with me. That's what I wanted to do, was to play with color. And as I stood back, the paper plates were really telling me how to paint it. That's the best part of working in paper plates. I spent as much time on it as I did just observing it. It kind of has its own language, paper plates. So,
how do you add to it as it's so big?
Interestingly, this is was a separate piece. There's another, I guess a spiral behind this one, also separate. My husband built me a post coming out of the wall. My room was 8 feet. I knew I had to build this to 8 feet and no bigger. So it was a good thing because I couldn't go beyond 8 feet. And so my husband put a center post in that wall. I built these on the floor, put 2 pieces of foam core together, marking my center. So I knew they would come apart just like that. It was easy because I knew not to glue on both sides. And then turn it into an element.
Did you have 3D in mind when you made it?
Oh yes. If I could mechanize this would be in 5 layers. This would go clockwise. This would go counterclockwise to this like flower. Then the next layer would be the water. And the water, each one would rotate up in opposite, and then the last one, and of course these would have to turn, and so would the turtles. So, and it would have lights. So you can use your imagination and add all of that in.
How many plates did you use?
Lights?
How many plates?
Oh, plates. I have no idea. I can't count. Sorry. A lot.
Contemporary as can be, and here is a 400 to 600 AD ball codex from the Mayans that the light comes across. You can see the Mayan figures. It's really a jewel. Again, these we don't know whether it was a paperweight for giant codexes or what it was, but it's this marvelous limestone sphere. Again, thank you so much for being a part of this.
Well, thank you, Rebecca.
Financial district is saying what has greed done to us as a people, etc. So these kids are out there protesting very seriously. Well, they have a great affinity with my friend who was a mole in the belly of corporate finance and excelled. He's so smart. It's my friend Deepak Chowdhury here. And Deepak made one of the bravest decisions, I think, in the life that I've come across, because when you've achieved so much financially through hard work for so long, it's very hard to walk away from that and to take care of your family, etc., to say, I don't want that life anymore. And so, Deepak, it's a pleasure to have you speak about your own work and your own concept of permanence that Dali and I fell in love with.
Well, I thought that artists were supposed to be inarticulate and weren't able to convey anything about their work, and so I think I have a real challenge ahead of me. My world changed in 2007 when I still was in the corporate world, as well as banking and finance, when I went on a journey with my son and another man and his son. My son was 10 years old at that time, and we went to a small village north of Beijing and stayed by the Great Wall of China, but that wasn't really the purpose of the trip. The trip actually began a few days later when the four of us took the train from Beijing to Lhasa, and it was a 48-hour journey. Getting as high as 17,000 feet. The first day was quite uneventful. We were going through China, lots of factories, lots of mills, lots of soups. And then I woke up the next morning at about 4:30. I had a brand new computer, I had a brand new camera, and I was just astounded by the views that were just unfolding during the twilight hours of the morning as we had entered Tibet. And it was so breathtaking. That whole day, the second day of that train journey, and the journey after that, staying in Lhasa for a few days, and then traveling across Tibet in a jeep, the four of us with a driver and a guide, were just absolutely astounding. I couldn't believe that I had spent the past 25 years of my life looking down, looking at books, looking at annual reports, looking at anything, and just not experiencing the world as I could have. Now, at this particular juncture, I had already decided to leave. I was coming to the tail end of my corporate affair, so to speak. I had worked with a company. They knew 18 months ago that I was going to leave, so perhaps it was a new lease on life, a new way of seeing things. But the colors in Tibet were so saturated and so incredible that my camera, and I'm not a photographer, didn't stop chattering. It just kept clicking and I couldn't help myself. Now, I only photograph when I'm away. I rarely photograph anything when I'm home. And so you could call me a traveling photographer. But to give you a little bit of very quick background, I hadn't left India. I was born there. I never left India until I was 20. Did my college in India and traveled extensively. And then I left India in late 1979. Forced my way into the University of Chicago for an MBA after having been rejected. My application was rejected. After finishing my MBA, I forced myself into the New York financial world, not having a job at the end of my MBA. And basically, that was it. And you suddenly find yourself, never having worn a suit before, never having worn a stout shirt before, suddenly spending the rest of your life in this circle. I mean, not a rut, because I had a great time doing what I was doing, but I knew that there was something, but it took me 25 years to figure it out. There was something that wasn't right. And, well, anyway, having left the corporate world in 2007, just after this trip of mine and my sons and my friends to Tibet, I had no idea what I was going to do, and it took me a little while to realize that I was going to focus on photography. When I was in Tibet, I couldn't stop photographing the clouds. Later on, when I was in Tierra del Fuego with my son, a year later, I couldn't stop photographing graffiti. Now, graffiti is something that I hated. Having spent 10 years in New York and Manhattan in the 80s, I hated the stuff. And here I was in a town called Punta Arenas at the top end of Tierra del Fuego, just in the Magellan Straits. And I was looking at everything from a totally different perspective. And of course, as you get older, you start thinking about life. And about, not missed opportunities, but the cycle of life, the periods of phases you go through. And I have photographed clouds, I've photographed graffiti, and I was contemplating for the first time some of the phases of my life. And by the way, I will continue going through these phases, sometimes intraday, sometimes for lengthy periods of time. So I'll just tell you, these are all photographic images. I do ritual photographs, but of course impermanence sometimes is a bit difficult. You have to convey it in a particular way. And I decided to choose to convey or create a portfolio called Impermanence, which actually take my earliest original photographs in the backgrounds, which are skyscapes, landscapes, and of course the foregrounds, which happen to be graffiti, which I've photographed in Chile and in the US and in India and in Spain and various other places. And this particular piece out here is called Blowing in the Wind, which is sometimes reflective of what I find myself doing. You have this circular motion. You have periods of darkness, different shades of gray, then followed by intense light. And then you have darkness again, and it's not in any particular order. Nevertheless, if you look more closely at the spherical shapes, which are, for me, reflect motion as well, you'll see that even though there's a hurricane setting within that particular image, we as people are, even in the darkest of times, the brightest of times, always trying to basically stabilize ourselves and get things right and get, keep things as proper as they can be. So that's this one image, which is called Blowing in the Wind. Then of course you have another image. This particular one is Indian landscape and US graffiti. What you have here is Tibetan and French landscape and Indian graffiti. And Underwater is the title of that particular piece. Now, to me, again, underwater is a literal feeling about where you might be on a particular day or in a particular part of your life phase. But like fish that are underwater, it's life-sustaining for them. It's almost, if you're a diver and you go down, you see that everything is, because there's a convexity to everything, the colors are very saturated. But if fish surface and you bring them out of the water, you land up with a ball of gray. So there's lots of shades of gray. Now conversely, we can also be underwater, but when we actually surface, when we actually cut through, the light shines through and the light and the color shines through. So that's really what that particular image is about. And finally you have sunrise. By the way, this is, the top part of this image is actually a sunrise that I photographed at something like 4:30 in the morning on the first morning of our stay in Tierra del Fuego, just over the Magellan Straits, and it was just astounding because it doesn't look like a sunrise. Night and day are both beautiful, but there's nothing as spectacular as a sunrise, and sometimes you get absolutely spectacular sunsets as well. And of course, after a sunrise reflects birth, creation, and after the sunrise, you have a full day ahead of you, signifying our life. And then you have sunset, which can be quite beautiful too, which of course leads me to contemplate what I'm going to be doing for the next several years. But if you are into Hinduism, for example, you know that after the sunset, there is another sunrise. So with that, I'm just going to leave you, and I want to thank Rebecca again and Dolly for including my work in this exhibition.
Quite a bit of work in impermanence and in the series, and these are some individual pieces from it. But what I loved was the notion that graffiti is by nature an impermanent art form, and the lucky glimpse that we have of a sunrise or a sunset when our head is not down in front of a computer screen or doing something and we connect with it is also the gift that is ours, that's priceless, that does not endure as well.